Hello, good afternoon, Giaev. Fáilte Galair, you're very welcome to our short explainer webinar this afternoon. David Rouse is my name. I'm Multi-Unit Developments Advisor with the Housing Agency. We're delighted to have over 870 people registered for this afternoon's webinar. We have a lot of people logging in and registering as we go. So what we might do while we're waiting on people to join us is launch a very brief poll, which is intended to ask you to let us know who you are in the audience. This is an anonymous poll, so your answer will not be associated with your name or email address. We would just like to know who's joining us today, which will help us tailor events into the future for those of you in the MUDS sector. So please let us know which category best describes you. There are a number of different choices. You may fall into a number of these categories, but please use the one that best describes your participation and your involvement in the MUDS sector. So are you an OMC director? Are you a property management agent? Are you working with an approved housing body or a local authority? Maybe you're an owner occupier. You might be an investor or a landlord. You might be a tenant or a renter. You might be in the retrofitting sector. You might be a solicitor or a lawyer. You might be in the construction sector or accounting, finance, or other. So please do let us know by ticking the poll on screen. As I said, it's entirely anonymous, and the more of you who answer the question, the more meaningful the data we get. So we'd encourage you please to let us know. So I think about 300 out of the 400 odd who are logged on at the moment have kindly answered the question. So I'll run it for another 10 seconds or so. So get your answer in. As I say, it's entirely anonymous, and your reply will not be associated with your email or your name. So very grateful to you for sharing that with us. So thank you very much. We have a large mix of attendance on the session, and I'm happy to share the results with you of the poll. And you can see we have nearly 20% OMC directors, about 15% from the management agent sector, about 20% from AHBs and local authorities, homeowners, nearly 10% are landlords, and plenty of people from the construction or property profession sector as well. So you're all very welcome indeed. As I mentioned, for those of you who might be just joining a minute or two late, David Rouse is my name. I am Multi-Unit Developments Advisor with the Housing Agency. This is our agenda for the short explainer webinar we're going to hold for you today. We've dealt with item one, the poll, and this is the introduction. We will shortly hear a word from the head of research of the Housing Agency, Shane Burke, who was involved in the research project with myself and others underpinning the training resources you're going to see today. Then the main course, if you like, in today's webinar is to provide you with a taste of key training videos to support people involved in retrofitting of MUDs. We will then explain to you how to access these training videos. Coming up towards 1 o'clock, we'll give you a short update on developments in the MUD sector, and we'll let you know what our plans are for 2026. And as I say, we'll wrap it up at about 1 o'clock. We've dealt with the poll happily. A couple of pieces of housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded and it will appear on our YouTube channel later on in the coming days. We have a chat function there, which is being manned by my colleague, Lisa Marie Sheehy, and Lisa Marie will keep an eye if there's any problems with audio or visual on the connection here today. We will email these slides that we're showing you. We will email those to you over the next day or two, and indeed we will pop them on our website, on our MUDS webpage as well. In terms of a little bit about the housing agency ourselves. Some of you might be new to us, or we might be new to you. And that's the team there. We're over 230 in headcount in our offices in Mount Street Upper. You can read all about the work of the agency for renters, for owners, for sustainable communities on our statement of strategy and on our website. A word of thanks to many of you who attended some of our outreach events held around the country in September and October. To date, over the last 5 or 6 years, we've held 32 outreach events in the places you see on the map on screen, and we had almost 300 people attend those events in September and October. We will be running them again. We expect in September and October of 2026. I will tell you a little bit more about that towards the end of the webinar. So today we're here to talk about resources to assist people in MUDs involved in or planning to get engaged in some retrofitting works for their development. And as we'll be saying later on, a lot of the principles, a lot of the ideas, a lot of the tools, a lot of the approaches that are involved in retrofitting have probably application and are transferable across to other projects that OMCs and OMC directors might be engaged in their development. So there's a lot of very good guidance, a lot of very good principles, a lot of good experience being shared in the webinar, in the clips and in the more detailed videos that we'll be showing you very, very shortly. Apartments and multi-unit developments are very complex buildings. They are owned or occupied by multiple stakeholders, multiple owners, multiple types of owners. So you have hundreds of people, potentially thousands of owners in developments made up of owners who are owner-occupiers, investors, landlords, approved housing bodies, local authorities, institutional or commercial landlords. They rely on volunteer directors, many of whom are with us today, on the boards of the OMCs to undertake their running of the estates, and indeed where a retrofitting project is envisaged, that requires a lot of work from the property management agent and the OMC directors and everyone else in the estate as well, and we'll talk about that. What we're not touching on today really is the construction methodologies, etc. That's kind of dealt with in other channels and other forums and is probably well understood. What we're focused on here is finance, governance, mobilizing members, getting people engaged, getting occupants, renters, tenants, getting everyone engaged in the process and the ways of doing that. And that's what we're going to provide you with in these videos, of which you will have tasters very, very shortly. There's a recognition in the research underpinning the training resources we're providing today, and we'll show you how to access that background to that research shortly. There's a recognition that there are capacity and governance challenges in the sector in terms of the skills and experience or lack thereof of volunteer directors. There is a recognition that there are funding challenges in the sector in terms of sinking funds and so on, and the training resources very much deal with those topics and issues and provide signposts and guidance for agents, for OMCs, for residents in getting and overcoming those issues. So as I say, the aims of the training resources that we're signposting to you today are to build knowledge of the challenges and barriers and experiences associated with retrofitting, mainly apartments. The resources focus on initiating the retrofit decision process, understanding the process for long-term retrofit planning, and they focus on steps to accelerate retrofitting. So in other words, engaging your members, getting things moved on in annual general meetings, providing sinking fund monies up in the budget for this work as well. All of these resources are hosted on a website called the EU Academy Training website. That's what you'll be looking at, and we'll show you how to get to that website shortly, but that's where all the resources are, and you can see them listed out there in terms of the research project findings, retrofitting needs and future proofing, financing informed decision-making, and engagement and mobilisation. So that's where all the resources are. We'd like to thank the European Commission for their support in getting these resources out to the sector, both practically and both academically, if you like, in getting the research pulled together. This training was implemented as part of an EU-funded technical support project, which was a multi-country support to advance building decarbonisation. In other words, trying to improve the energy efficiency of buildings. It was a multi-country project. You can hear from the researchers. You can read their presentations. They're all on the EU platform as well. And again, we'll show you how to access that shortly. The project was funded by the EU via the technical support instrument, which is a funding method to support improvements in member states dealing with particular, I suppose, vexed problems, one of which might be bringing stakeholders together to retrofit apartment blocks. It's managed by the European Commission Reform and Investment Task Force, which is called the SG Reform. The researchers in the project were Trinomics. These researchers were appointed by the European Commission. Their local partner in Ireland was the Technical University of the Shannon, the TUS, led by lead researcher Elizabeth O'Brien, and we'll hear a little bit from Liz later on. And there was a steering group involved in the research made up of colleagues from DHLGH, which is the Department of Local Government, the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, from the SEAI, the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, the Department of Climate, Energy and Environment, and ourselves on the Housing Agency. So that was the research team and the steering group involved in the research. And just a word now, I'll hand over very briefly to a quick recording from the head of research in the Housing Agency, my colleague Shane Burke, with a few words from Shane. And before we do that, we would also point out that the training is split up into 4 modules as set out as such on the website. The videos will cover an awful lot of topics. Before I get to Shane, they cover apartment building life cycles, accessing SEI supports for MUDs and OMCs. We will talk a little bit about the Energy Performance in Buildings Directive. You'll hear from a one-stop shop operator on how they work with MUDs. We'll hear from a property management agent. Again, you're just going to hear tastes of these videos, but we'll show you how to access them all later on. In terms of running projects in MUDs, there's a lot of good content. We'll hear from an OMC director who has done a lot of this in the past. We will focus on bringing owners on the journey, and we'll point you to further resources. But now that word.
My name is Shane Burke. I'm head of research at the Housing Agency. The Housing Agency's research is focused on delivering data and information and insights to inform sustainable communities and the development of a sustainable housing sector. This important research, which underpins some of the training materials you see today, is focused on retrofitting of the multi-unit development sector, and particularly pays attention to some of the challenges from a governance and a financial point of view. Retrofitting multi-unit developments is hugely important if Ireland's going to meet its climate emission targets, and also for mitigating against energy poverty. I'd like to thank the European Commission for supporting the research and for hosting the training materials on its training portal. I'd also like to thank our steering group committee members, which were the Housing Agency, the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, and the Department of Climate, Energy and the Environment. I hope you very much enjoy the webinar, and I'll hand you over to David now. Thank you very much.
So before we give you the tasters of the videos, before we get to the main course, we would maybe set the scene by pointing out that these training videos were recorded live in the Housing Agency's offices earlier this year. In the best traditions of Hollywood, they were recorded live before a studio audience, so there's plenty of participation from the stakeholder groups that were involved in the workshops and involved in the training videos. They are discursive and conversational in nature, so there's a lot of interaction with the audience. And many of the questions, I suspect, that are going through your mind right now in terms of the value of these resources, how to apply them in practice, how to use the tools involved, are brought up by the audience in the sessions recorded live. So if you like, hold fire with your questions, and they are very much answered in the audience participation in the recordings. The presentations are supported by PowerPoint slides, which are also on the platform we will show you shortly. And we would point out that you will need to make sure that your broadband is up to pitch, but I think most of us are at that level already, and you should be able to watch the recordings fairly smoothly. Some caveats: the information is general in nature, as we always couch and advise when putting out materials into the sector. No two multi-unit developments are the same. No two owners management companies are the same. And for that reason, when deciding to proceed with particular projects, propositions, etc., you should be sure to take advice from your property management agent, from legal advisors, and indeed in this context from energy advisors as well. But all those topics are covered in the videos, and we would urge you to take the materials as a package, as a suite of resources, a suite of information. looking at the individual videos in isolation, while interesting, may not give you the full picture. So we'd invite you to access them as a suite and access them together. We'd point out that there are opinions and views expressed in the videos by some of the speakers and indeed the audience, and those views do not necessarily represent the views of the EU Commission or the steering group members. And indeed, there are speakers who are providers into the sector, and the sharing of these videos is not an endorsement of the providers as such. So with that, this is the 5 samples you're going to hear from. We're going to hear from property management agent. We're going to hear from a colleague in the SEAI on the Community Energy Grant Scheme. We'll hear from Mike O'Rourke of the One Stop Shop. We'll hear from Liz, the lead researcher, and we'll hear from an OMC director who has actually undertaken these activities and undertaken upgrades and retrofits in their development. So first up, we're going to hear from Paul Huberman, who is a property management agent. And again, a reminder, this is a sample from a very lengthy, as are all of the recordings, this is a sample from a very lengthy session. Maybe some of the speakers and some of the workshops went on for an hour or so. So this is a taste to give you a sense of what you're going to see.
Really, the only way you can have an intelligent conversation about a sinking fund is to have unbiased, informed information to allow people to arrive at the position of making an informed decision. And to do that is a building investment fund. It is a document that would be drafted by an independent third party. So they're independent of the board of directors and their motivations. They're independent of the agent and the agent's motivations. And they're qualified to make that determination. So they would basically review the development as it sits, do visual inspections. They wouldn't do invasive inspections as per se a fire audit for compartmentalization, but it would be a pretty good understanding of the fabric of the building, what it's made up of, how much it's going to cost to replace it, and when to replace it. So then that document is collated back in. I have a screenshot further down of what that page, the important page, looks like in a building investment fund. And it just lists all the assets in the development and when that individual believes they're going to have to be replaced and how much it's going to cost.
So that's a sense of what the property management agent goes through in his lengthy presentation, considering sinking funds, financing, planning for major projects in an apartment development or a multi-unit development. As I say, a very valuable resource with application much beyond the retrofit topic that we're discussing here today. So that's the first taster video. Moving on, we'll now hear from Brian McIntyre, who is a colleague in the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. And the taster you're going to hear about is in relation to the Community Energy Grant Scheme, which is the channel through which OMCs should apply for support. So here we go from Brian.
So the Community Energy Grant is a grant that's been in place for goodness how many years, but it's a grant that covers energy efficiency measures for residential buildings, public buildings, private buildings and community buildings. And a lot of projects would have all of those elements within it. So typically what happens is that someone that's interested in getting involved in it would carry out an energy audit. So they have an inspection, a survey and analysis of your energy flows within the building, or a series of buildings. So it looks at what the average annual energy use on the site is in terms of cost in kilowatt hours or energy consumption. It looks at the building fabric, so where do you need to upgrade your insulation or improve windows, and then just the high usage item, so what's driving your energy use. So that energy audit then and all that analysis and what you looked at, it identifies the measures that you need to upgrade, whether it be heating, whether it needs to be insulation, and opportunities then for incorporating renewable energy. It gives you a technical description of the measures, the investment cost for the measures, and then assesses the cost-benefit payback period.
So that's, again, a taster of what Brian gets into in his presentation. As I mentioned, the videos were recorded live. There is interaction with the audience. So some of the questions going through your mind in relation to what the property management agent mentioned, what Brian mentioned from the SEAI, those questions will be answered in the interaction that you can watch on the videos, and we'll show you how to get to the platform shortly. We have been asked by the SEAI that any queries in relation to the Community Energy Grant Scheme should be directed to this address. A reminder, you'll have these slides after the event, either later today or tomorrow, so no need to chase us for those. Next up, we hear from Mike O'Rourke, who is in one of the one-stop shop operators, which is where people go to advance their projects and get coordination from one-stop shops. So this is a little bit more building construction technical, and we'll hear from Mike now.
Now, this was just, it is very general, right? But I just tried to kind of do this kind of a comparison between kind of the individual grants versus what types of measures are definitely suitable for MUDs or definitely not suitable for MUDs. Which ones can you go single? So to give you, I'll try and explain as I go along. So, for example, roof insulation, that can be done on a single dwelling basis, and also on a block dwelling basis. But flat roof in a MUD, you can't really, it's not practical to suggest you just do flat roof insulation on one part of the building and not the rest of it. So that's a kind of a measure that should be dealt with on an OMC basis, regardless of what other options are available. For wall insulation, you can internally insulate an apartment individually without doing other apartments, or you can do them all. Cavity wall insulation, there's an argument that says you could do it on an individual basis, but you do have to consider and address the possibility that when you start pumping your wall, it's actually flowing to the guy down below and everybody else and not just you. So it's not the most suitable to do on an individual basis. We would not be recommending it. We'd say, look, if you're going cavity wall insulation, try to do the entire block.
So that's a sense of what Mike from the One Stop Shop covers. Moving on, we hear a little bit now from Liz O'Brien. Liz talks about getting people involved in your estate, involved in the retrofit project, coordinating residents, motivating them, engaging them, mobilising them.
Collective action. Coming together in groups or organisations strengthens people's voices. That's exactly what we're doing now. Social participation. Every individual in MUDs is integral to the development and process of decision making. Every owner. It's not the management agent is not running the business, the OMC is, and owners make the OMC. So they are the decision makers. Ownership and involvement. Every member should take complete responsibility and accountability for their participation and input into MUDs issues. Okay? 10 reasons. I'm calling it a community energy project because MUDs is part of the CEG. So these are 10 reasons. There's many more, but these are the 10 that I believe could start the whole process.
So that's a word from Liz. You can watch that video where she talks much more about engagement and mobilising residents. The final video we're going to get a taste of is Dara Began, who is a director of an OMC of a large development of apartments in Dublin city centre. And in the best traditions of the Late Late Show, we'll roll it there.
These are the exact slides that I showed at the AGM at the end of last year. So I'll go through them quite quickly because it's way too... But we reminded people, so at AGM 21, we said we'd engage an expert. So this is, in 24 we're doing this. So we agreed at the AGM in 21, we'd engage an expert, we'd pay 10 grand, it was going to be paid back by SEAI, and it would come and go within the 1 year. So it was a soft touch, it wasn't going to impact. At 22, we put the thing to you. So we've discussed in 22, and we got somebody in from Arden Energy to go through the report. In 23 and 24, we put aside 10 grand each year to start building up something for actions. And we did those meetings saying, we've got a report, we're going to do something, don't know what, we're looking for the low-hanging fruit, but let's start putting something in there so when we identify what to do, we're not starting from nothing. So that's what we did. We made, and this is where I didn't quite agree with what you were saying, we decided we don't have centralised heating. The only centralised things we have is it's all electrics and all electric blocks. So we've lighting, we've lifts, we've massive pumps that pump the water up to the 5th floor. We've outdoor lighting. So nearly all our electricity, which has varied from 30 grand a year down to about 18 and bounces between those two, nearly all of that goes on lighting, lifts and pumps. And then you've got cameras and all that kind of stuff. But that for us was the low-hanging fruit because we've got control. We'd already done our lighting, I told you. We took our lighting down to LEDs several years ago. So that was one that we said, there's low-hanging fruit. It's not going to get in people's way, except in a very small way. It's going to reduce our bills straight away. So at least we investigated. We said, that's what we're going to investigate.
So there you go. There's a practical, on-the-ground example of an OMC director engaging with his board, engaging with his annual general meeting on a retrofitting project. So these are tasters. You can watch the videos in detail. Lots of time coming up over the next few weeks when you're tired of Willy Wonka and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Die Hard videos. You can crank open the EU platform and we'll show you how to do that and watch the videos. These are, as I said, available through the EU platform, not through the housing agency channels. There are further sessions, further recordings about the project finding, as I mentioned earlier, and we will have a recording of this webinar on the YouTube channel. This is the website. This is the link. Included in the slides, which you will receive later, is a step-by-step guide to how to register for the platform, how to create an account. You receive an email confirming your account has been created. You do the usual verification click. You get a password. You put in your password. You create it and you verify it, and you move yourself through the steps. You agree the usual consents, data protection, and so on. And after that, you're in, and you have access then to the videos and to the presentations. There is a help page on the EU platform that you can access for queries around logging in or accessing if you have any problems accessing the resources. This is what you will see when you log in. These are the presentations. So the ones in blue are the videos. The ones in PDF are the slides that accompany the videos. And you can see them all there. This is actually what you see on the platform. When you go to play the video, you have an enrollment feature. It's 2 clicks through, and there you are. You can play the videos, and you've just seen a taster, and that's Brian McIntyre from the SEAI. You can jump through the content. You can surf from presentation to presentation, slide to slide. You can see them all listed out there. And you can click into the slide presentations as well very readily. And there is a connection on the platform to our own website with the resources for MUDs in terms of useful links, FAQs, and I'll talk about those shortly. As I mentioned, any queries on logging in, creating accounts, contact the EU platform help page, which is available to you there. To wrap up today's session, we're coming up to 1 o'clock. 3 quick updates on what's going on in the sector. One is our usual ask for your help. The state is attempting to pull together a list or register a database of OMCs in the country. We'll ask for your help on that. A quick update on review of the MUDs law and point you to some new resources from the housing agency itself over and above those we've shared with you today. Number 1, if you're filing your annual return with the company's office, please tick the box to identify yourself as an owner's management company. There's guidance on that and on name changes for OMCs if required on the CRO website and the housing agency website. The links are at the bottom of the slide. You'll get the slides later on today. An update on developments in the Multi-Unit Developments Act and an overview of the legislation. A review of the legislation is promised in the housing plan published on the 13th of November. The MUD Act is due to transfer, the Multi-Unit Developments Act is due to transfer from the Department of Justice to the Department of Housing. There is a provision for that in an omnibus piece of legislation coming from the Department of Justice. You can read the detail there in your own time. And there was a lot of discussion of this and other topics at a joint Oireachtas committee in recent weeks. And I've included links to those as well. A reminder of all the resources on our website, including now a link to the EU Academy page where you can get the videos, get the presentations. We update our FAQs on a regular basis. We try and reflect the queries that come into us and update them for everyone in the sector. Our YouTube channel, the 27 webinars on the MUD Act, company law for MUDs, financing, sinking funds, waste management, retrofitting, SEAI materials, over 11,000 views now of all those videos on our website. So thank you for engaging with those. The Housing Agency has a new podcast series, and episode 1 is on the Croí Cónaithe City scheme, but there's some commentary there in relation to apartment living. What's coming in 2026? Keep an eye on our news and events webpage. We will have research on decisions of the Circuit Court under the MUD Act in collaboration with the Construction Bar Association. So that'll probably be in Q2 next year. We will have some insights on waste management and segregation practices and some new research coming out there. As I mentioned, We will have our outreach events in September and October, and keep an eye on that webpage for further resources. A quick recap: if you have problems accessing the EU platform or website, that's the webpage for questions. If you have queries for the SEAI on the grant supports for MUDs and OMCs, bec@seai.ie. We will email these slides out to you. We will circulate a recording of today's session. It'll be on our YouTube channel, and we'll include a link in that email we send around. To conclude, I would wish you a very happy Christmas, and I would also thank Jan Zimmerman in the EU Commission, my colleague Lisa Marie Sheehy, for pulling together today's webinar, and our comms and research team as well. So, Gur mille maith agaibh go léir agus nullig honna